So obviously this last year has been an interesting year, a lot of lessons learned. But one of the really great things, which you kind of touched on a couple minutes ago, is the incredible advancements in the technologies and solutions for the remote audience. We have so many more options now and so many more cool things to be able to engage them. So let's have a conversation about, what are some effective ways to engage the remote audience and bring them in to that event experience in a meaningful way. But being mindful of, we don't want to diminish the in-person experience, right? Because you've got attendees who are paying for the tickets and flying out there and staying in hotels. So let's kind of, let's talk through some of these ideas that we've brainstormed and been thinking about of how we can bring them together.
Do you want to go, Jen? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Laurel. Oh, good.
I'll say one of the things that I've noticed, we have we call it a hybrid learning lab, where we've been bringing in smaller size meeting groups month over month through the pandemic to kind of try some things out. And a lot of it's the human factors. And I'll probably talk a lot about that today, because that's been what's most surprising to me as we've been trying to put together hybrid experiences. And one of the things I've noticed is that in-person attendees have a pretty low tolerance for changing or making room in their experience if it's not convenient for them for the remote audience. And I feel like that's probably heightened right now, down the road. I think that'll kind of smooth out. But the in-person audience really feels like they've been missing out, right? And so then they're craving that experience they had before. And I think they feel frustrated by having to do things differently or behave differently to welcome in the remote audience. And also, if anybody has traveled right now, it's so difficult to do, where just everything takes longer. Things aren't staffed like they were. You have all new people or not enough people. And so as an in-person attendee, every touch point that you have just to get yourself to the venue is a little bit more challenging than it used to be. So you've had some annoyances before you even get to the event. And so you want to have a really premium experience. And so balancing those two things is going to be a really amazing challenge.
So true, Laurel. I mean, looking at both audiences and what everyone's been through a lot. And, the whole expectation of the virtual, we went from completely face-to-face to figure out completely virtual. And now we're landing back in this middle where everyone's trying to figure out for themselves what that experience is like. And then these two audiences, when you're looking at the face-to-face, here's a few that over the years we've implemented. And I love Laurel's human touch point, because I think when we go digital, a lot of it goes strictly to the digital, like, oh, this is cool technology. How do we use this? And if you kind of flip that on, now that you have this audience, this whole audience, how do you make them feel? And then you pull in the technology. So I would start at the very basic is acknowledge them. Have all your speakers, when you sit down holistically with your team, when they welcome your face-to-face, welcome the remote audience. You will not believe what a difference that makes when they acknowledge and say where they're from and how many countries or how many people are on. Making them feel that they're heard or part of it from the very beginning is going to be huge. And then explore the opportunities that you have to hear from them. So one of the really cool things that happened this year was the innovation, the adaption of the technology solutions, what Hilary and Laurel, what you guys can offer, when you look at all the different technology that's out there, the adaption and what has increased, especially in engagement, has just been off the charts. So look and see where you can provide that. If it's the text chat like we have here and the Q&A, where you can really help connect. And it's really looking at those meaningful points on connecting them. If you even just start there, I mean, there's so many different ways that it's going to be exciting to see what groups deliver over this year and the next years. But I agree that human touch is really important. And those would be some soft ways of not disrupting your face-to-face as much and trying to, force things on them as you're kind of blending the two audiences.
Yeah, and I think so much of it starts at the beginning, like you were saying, of what's your strategy behind it all, and understanding where's your audience going to be, how many people are you expecting to have online versus in person, and really thinking through what you want that experience to be. Because I think once you have that strategy and those goals in place, and you know what level of emphasis you want to put in any spectrum of it, whether it's remote, your person who's, maybe you're hosting an event that a lot of people are traveling in for. And I think the expectation would be that those people are able to engage, even though they're at the conference. There's some digital experiences in there to be able to engage, whether it's the content. I mean, maybe, now everyone's become so acclimated with the virtual space. It's like they're going to feel more accustomed to being able to go back to their hotel room and know that they can consume content from that space. So it's thinking through all those kind of personas and where they're going to be accessing things from. And then once you have that established, the technology is there. Like, we have the means to solve those challenges and to make it happen. I think it's just really critical that you lay that foundation first. And something that I've seen, work really well too is that whole piece about not taking away from the in-person. I think it's really critical that we do still establish those moments that are exclusively on site, so that you do still give that weight to the people who have, like you were saying earlier, Laurel, they've flown all the way across the country or the world or whatever. It's like you still need that experience to feel special. So I think there's a balance. And if a lot of thought goes into that, you can definitely achieve it, I think.
And Hilary, I completely agree with that. And I would actually say for the virtual, I would do the exact same, that you want to make sure that you have that special connection with just them too, because even though they haven't flown, and you absolutely want to take care of those people that have done that, but if they're engaging with you, they're spending their time with you, and it's that whole value proposition of that they might be somebody who hasn't engaged with you before, and now that can be more enriched. And some different ways you could do that is having an MC, having a host. We've had this from many different events where they connect and they can tie things together and they can do interviews. You can have a live studio from the convention center. So when the face-to-face is having that special time, especially like lunchtime, do not live stream a lunchtime event. It's horrible. I've done it. I've crawled under the table afterwards. So you don't want to do that. So during that time, that's a really good opportunity to have those interviews and make that special time so that you're taking care of both audiences.
I really like the idea of using the in-person event as also your production studio, so that the virtual experience and the in-person experience aren't concurrent. And that gives the production team a way of optimizing for both audiences without really dramatically expanding the budget. And so when you have the people on site presenting, maybe they can present a second time in a studio, so you can get the correct setup for them and make sure they aren't moving around too much, and all the things that you have to take into consideration when you're going to be watching it on the computer. And maybe you consider that the in-person has some elements of the conference, but the people who are in person consume some elements of the conference virtually later, and those get filmed during the time of the conference. I think that that's a really interesting way of being able to deliver really premium experiences for all of the audiences and be thoughtful about people's time, and what part of your agenda is it really meaningful to be in person for, versus what is a one-to-many presentation that is easily consumed virtually.
Mm.